There is a silence that accompanies truth. It is not an empty silence, but a living stillness that settles in your spirit when the last pieces of a complex divine puzzle finally click into place. It feels like a quiet authority, a weightless crown resting on your inner world. This authority, sensed within and perceived without, is the subject of our meditation today. If you are listening to this, you have undoubtedly felt the subtle pressure of being watched, not in a paranoid or superficial way, but as if eyes have lingered on you longer than usual. People study you without fully understanding why. You carry an aura of knowing, a density of tranquility that does not match the logical expectations of your life story. By all human metrics, based on what you have endured and survived, this level of peace should not be yours, and yet it is. Others see it. They sense the unshakable ground beneath your feet, and they are quietly, sincerely in awe. But their awe is stitched with confusion. They look at your history, the betrayals, the heartbreak, the nights when your soul felt like it was breaking in the dark. And then they look at the ancient, settled calm that rests upon you now. The tension between what you went through and how you now carry yourself creates a kind of cognitive dissonance in their minds. They stand on the outside of your stillness, wondering, how did you figure this out? What map did you follow that no one else had? The answer is not luck, not strategy, not personality. The answer is that you were chosen to learn the language of the spirit, not just the language of man, and you surrendered to the demanding curriculum of the soul. While the unanointed world reacts to life with panic, control, and endless reactivity, you were taught a different rhythm. You learned to anchor yourself, not to changing circumstances, but to the immovable eye of the storm within. You discovered that true power is not in fighting everything, but in yielding to the divine process shaping you from the inside out. You laid down the false blueprints of ego, constant validation, instant gratification, endless defensiveness, and chose instead the narrow, hidden path of spiritual non-resistance. You found a secret door to peace in the inner chamber of your heart, and you kept walking through it until it became home. That is why they are perplexed. They see you stand calm under pressures that would have crushed them. They watch you smile with genuine assurance when you have every reason to fall apart. Your peace exposes the poverty of their illusions. They see the result, but cannot access the process. Now, we turn slowly to the 7 master keys, the specific spiritual marks that confirm to others, and more importantly to your own soul, that you have truly cracked the divine code. These 7 marks do not make you better than others. They simply reveal what happens when a soul finally decides to trust God more than fear. Point 1, the mastery of silence, the spiritual economics of restraint. The unanointed, driven by the fear of emptiness and the impulse of the ego, seek perpetually to fill every empty space with noise, gossip, distraction, excessive, often unnecessary action, and the compulsion to have the final, loudest word. They fundamentally perceive silence as a threat, a void in which their unaddressed fears or unresolved issues might surface. The chosen one, however, through the demanding curriculum of isolation and spiritual discipline, has learned that silence is the sanctuary where the divine voice is clearest and where true energy is conserved. You figured out the deep spiritual economics of restraint. That your true enduring power resides not in reacting to every slight, not in immediately defending every boundary, and absolutely not in explaining the intricate, non-linear path of your soul's journey to those who operate only in straight lines. This deep, consistent practice of restraint, this quiet, unshakable confidence that requires no external validation, confuses and ultimately disarms those who fundamentally thrive on external drama, immediate response, and the temporary satisfaction of loud, aggressive justification. The internal mechanism. This mastery is not merely about not talking, it is the total psychological disarmament of the reactive ego. When an external stimulus, a criticism, a provocation, a misunderstanding, strikes you, the old programming would trigger the fight or flight response, leading to a verbal counterattack. The mastery of silence is the moment you intercept that electrical impulse, consciously choosing to route the energy inward for discernment, rather than outward for defense. You have learned that every word spoken from a place of reaction diminishes your spiritual standing and wastes your vital energy. By remaining silent, you force the chaotic energy of the other party to dissipate naturally without a hook to latch onto. This silence is an active, powerful void that absorbs the unnecessary noise of the world. Psychologically, they interpret this silence as either supreme confidence or supreme indifference. But the truth is, it is supreme discernment. You are not ignoring them. You are prioritizing the inner voice over the external clamor. They wonder, how can they remain so calm when I have said the thing designed to provoke them? They simply cannot fathom that you have achieved emotional sovereignty, where the keys to your inner peace are permanently held by you and never by their words or actions. This quiet, powerful refusal to participate in the drama is one of the most compelling signs of your spiritual maturation and the most perplexing aspect for those who live for the spectacle. The deeper you settle into this mastery, the more profound their sense of bewilderment becomes. This silence is your subtle, potent, spiritual weapon. Point 2, the acceptance of spiritual pruning, the alchemy of temporary loss. Most individuals instinctively fight suffering. They view any period of intense difficulty, hardship, or material loss as an error in their planning, a failure of their faith, or a harsh, unwarranted punishment from a punitive universe. They seek comfort and ease as the highest state of being. You, the chosen one, figured out the profound spiritual truth that periods of discomfort, material loss, betrayal, and deep personal hardship are not evidence of divine failure or punishment, but specialized, accelerated spiritual pruning. You learn to sit patiently and willingly with the acute temporary pain of having old, unproductive, and often spiritually limiting branches cut away from your life's vine, knowing with a certainty beyond logic that the ultimate guaranteed result is the potential for greater fruit and a more resilient, focused structure. They observe your hardship, the loss of the job, the sudden end of a long-term relationship, the forced move, but they fundamentally miss the crucial internal element, the quiet, dignified surrender that you offer to the process, which is the exact factor that accelerated your growth through it, rather than burying you underneath it. What confuses them most is not the magnitude of what you lost, but the magnitude of who you became. While they interpret painful seasons as evidence that life is falling apart, you learn to interpret them as the sacred moments in which everything falls away. You understood that divinely initiated discomfort is never random. Every shock, every severing, every abrupt ending is a deliberate, intelligent intervention designed to elevate your path. Instead of resisting, you breathed into the unknown. You remained steady while the old structures collapsed. And in doing so, you aligned yourself with the rhythm of spiritual refinement, rather than the panic of human fear. The internal mechanism behind this transformation is profound. The human ego identifies strongly with its external attachments, status, titles, specific relationships, and material stability. When these are removed, the ego experiences an identity crisis, feeling diminished or unworthy. But the acceptance of spiritual pruning is the moment you dismantle the ego's identification with the temporary. You recognize that the divine hand was not tearing down your life, but merely removing the scaffolding and the clutter that was preventing you from accessing your true, inherent structure. The pain, while real, is redefined in your soul. It ceases to be the pain of punishment and becomes the necessary discomfort of deep transformation. This is why, although others expected you to collapse, you emerged with an inner fortitude that seemed impossible for someone who had just endured so much. They are confused because they equate loss with defeat, yet they see you, post-loss, standing taller, speaking wiser, and radiating a peculiar, unearned calm. They cannot see the spiritual contract you signed, the one where you willingly exchanged comfort for character and temporary stability for eternal depth. You learned that the attachments that are pruned away often serve to block the sunlight of genuine spiritual revelation. By letting go gracefully, you created the space for a much purer, truer version of yourself to emerge. They see ashes. You see the clearing where new life will rise. This is why their pity for your circumstances quickly morphs into an uneasy awe at your resilience. They see the empty chair, but you see the new space for divine occupation within your life. This alchemy, turning the bitterness of loss into the sweetness of presence, is a spiritual secret you successfully decoded. And that secret is the reason you now walk with a depth, a stillness, and a power that can only be forged in the sacred fire of divine pruning. Point 3. The shift from ownership to stewardship, the psychology of open hands. The unanointed world is driven by an obsessive, anxious need for absolute acquisition and rigid ownership. They grasp tightly to possessions, to specific titles, to controlling the narrative, and particularly to defining and controlling the people in their lives. They believe security is found in the tightness of their grip. You, the chosen one, through numerous painful lessons, have learned the profoundly liberating spiritual and psychological fact that you genuinely own nothing. You only manage and hold in trust what the divine willingly entrusts you with for a specific season. This deep, practical understanding immediately releases you from the crushing burden of needing to control outcomes. It allows you to release things gracefully, relationships smoothly, and opportunities without bitterness, simply when their intended season ends or their spiritual purpose is fulfilled. Meanwhile, they are left struggling, often violently, with the deep-seated attachment, the resulting pain of loss, and the spiritual exhaustion that comes from perpetually fighting against the natural ebb and flow of life. Your ease of letting go, your open hands, is not interpreted as weakness, but rather inspires a frustrated, baffled amazement in them. The internal mechanism? The shift from ownership to stewardship is a fundamental rewiring of the ego's relationship with the material world. When the ego owns something, it creates fear of loss, which manifests as anxiety and control. When the ego is merely a steward, it accepts responsibility without attachment. You figured out that the things you hold most tightly are the things that cause the most pain. when they are inevitably removed. Therefore, you intentionally loosened your grip, not out of indifference, but out of advanced spiritual wisdom. You treat your home, your job, your time, and even your talents not as personal achievements to be defended, but as resources given to you to manage wisely and generously for a temporary duration. They see you walk away from a seemingly perfect situation without regret and wonder how you could afford to be so casual with success. They cannot comprehend that you calculated the true cost of attachment and found it to be too high. You understand that your identity is not derived from the things you manage. This detachment creates a psychological spaciousness, a mental and emotional buffer that allows you to navigate unexpected change with a remarkable fluidity. You are no longer defined by what you possess, but by the quiet faithfulness with which you use it. This fundamental psychological freedom, the ability to act without needing a specific result, is what leaves them utterly perplexed, as they are still enslaved by the need for guaranteed outcomes. Point 4, the power of internal validation, the unstoppable engine of self-sovereignty. The unanointed world, which operates on the surface level of performance and public image, perpetually measures success and personal worth by external fragile metrics: applause, accumulated wealth, professional titles, and the fluctuating, often cruel, pendulum of public opinion. Their identity is a constantly updated reflection in the mirrors held up by others. They chase validation the way a thirsty traveler chases a mirage, forever reaching, never receiving. And because their sense of worth is built on such brittle foundations, their inner life becomes a cycle of insecurity, comparison, and restless striving. You, the chosen one, through your intentional spiritual training, have cultivated an unshakable, foundational inner knowing that the only validation that possesses true, lasting weight flows directly from your deep alignment with your spiritual contract and the quiet approval of the divine. This understanding did not arise overnight. It was formed through seasons of solitude, moments of painful clarity, and countless internal battles in which you were forced to choose between the noise of the world and the whisper of God. Over time, you figured out at a soul level that your inherent worth is non-negotiable, divinely imprinted, and completely independent of human acknowledgement or earthly achievement. You learned that true power does not come from being seen, but from being rooted. So when you make a decision that appears entirely illogical, even foolish, to the world, perhaps sacrificing income for integrity, or choosing solitude over superficial networking, or walking away from environments that once stroked your ego but starved your soul, yet feels profoundly, deeply right within your spirit, you are demonstrating a level of pure self-trust and spiritual sovereignty they cannot possibly fathom. They watch you choose authenticity over approval, purpose over popularity, and alignment over applause, and they simply cannot understand how you move with such calm certainty. The internal mechanism behind this power is profound. It is generated by a radical act of relocating the source of self-worth. For most people, the worth meter is external. It spikes with praise and plummets with criticism, leading to an exhausting emotional roller coaster. Their emotional climate is controlled by the weather of other people's opinions. But your journey taught you to install an internal worth meter, calibrated only to the frequency of divine truth. This gives you a remarkable consistency and emotional stability. You no longer rise and fall based on what others think of you. Your confidence is not conditional. Your peace is not negotiable. They are confused because they are looking for the source of your confidence in your resume, your social circle, or your bank account, and finding nothing there that justifies your supreme calm. They cannot see the direct, continuous energy flow from the divine that is your true fuel source. This internal validation acts as an emotional fortress. Insults cannot penetrate, and misplaced praise cannot inflate, because you know your true dimensions. You understand that seeking validation from a person who cannot validate their own life is fundamentally absurd. This insight frees you to pursue a path guided solely by intuition and conscience, unburdened by the need to manage perception. And this is why you're unafraid of being misunderstood. You realize that being correctly understood by the divine is the only comprehension that truly sustains this self-sovereignty. This magnificent refusal to be governed by the opinions of others is the engine that inspires their awe and causes them to wonder, how are they so sure of themselves when no one is clapping? Point 5, the practice of compassionate detachment, the spiritual shield of empathy. The unanointed often struggle with emotional entanglement. They tend to swing wildly between two extremes, either complete, overwhelming absorption into the problems and dramas of others, falling into cycles of codependency, emotional burnout, and misplaced responsibility, or cold, defensive retreat, where they shut down, disconnect, and abandon their own emotional intelligence in an attempt to protect themselves. You, the chosen one, are unique because you have learned a higher way. You are fully, deeply engaged with life and the suffering of humanity, yet you have successfully realized that you are no longer defined, diminished, or spiritually contaminated by the chaos or toxicity of others. You have mastered the intricate, powerful art of offering authentic love, profound support, and genuine empathy without absorbing the toxicity, the projections, or the emotional debris that others unconsciously attempt to unload onto your spirit. They marvel at your ability to walk through intensely charged emotional situations, deep family crises where tempers flare and truth becomes distorted, volatile workplace conflicts fueled by insecurity and ego, public misunderstandings that test your character and still emerge, not unscathed, but critically, untainted. You maintain your core energy, your spiritual alignment, and your grounded sense of self. To them it appears almost supernatural. They wonder, almost with disbelief, how do you maintain such a powerful yet simultaneously gentle boundary? The secret lies in the internal mechanism they cannot see. Compassionate detachment is achieved by fundamentally distinguishing between empathy and enmeshment. Empathy is the ability to understand and to stand beside someone in their suffering. Enmeshment is the compulsion to carry what was never assigned to you. You, the chosen one, have learned the difference. You realize that real help does not mean becoming another casualty in someone else's emotional war zone. Real support is not about drowning with someone, but about staying anchored so that your stability becomes their lifeline. When interacting with volatile energy, you consciously utilize a spiritual shield, not a wall of coldness or hardness, but a radiant field of sovereign light. This shield allows you to stay present, compassionate, and receptive without becoming porous to the emotional toxins, distortions, or projections that others may send your way. You recognize that the pain projected onto you is a transmission, not a truth. It is an expression of their internal battle, not evidence of your inadequacy or wrongdoing. And so, while others expect you to be shaken, destabilized, wounded, or guilt-tripped into reacting, you remain tethered to a deeper, more peaceful spiritual reality. This is why you do not internalize their anger. This is why you are not derailed by their accusations. This is why their attempts to pull you into chaos fail. You are rooted in something higher, something steady, something that does not sway with the emotional storms around you. This practice is the foundation of true ministry. You understand the eternal spiritual law. You cannot pour into others from an empty or contaminated vessel. Your clarity must remain clear. Your peace must remain intact. And so you mastered the psychological and spiritual skill of setting non-porous boundaries while maintaining a beautifully porous heart. This rare balance allows you to witness their pain without becoming a participant in their suffering. Your presence alone often disrupts chaos. You do not feed the flames with reactivity, fear, or ego. Your detachment refuses to validate the drama, and without your participation, the emotional temperature begins to drop. You create an atmosphere where truth becomes visible again, where peace has room to breathe. And this unique combination of deep compassion and unshakable inner stability, the ability to hold space without collapsing into it, is the mark of the fully operational, mature, chosen one. It is a mystery of strength that profoundly awes those around you. They sense that you are built differently, guided differently, and protected differently. And they are right. You are. Point 6, the wisdom of divine timing, the unwavering trust in the invisible schedule. The unanointed world is relentlessly driven by impatience, anxiety, and the compulsive need to force doors open that were clearly meant to remain closed. They measure progress exclusively by speed and the immediate visible attainment of goals. Their mantra is, I must make this happen now. You, the chosen one, through the deliberate refinement of your spiritual perception, learned the profound, deeper truth that there is absolutely no such thing as being behind on a spiritual clock or timeline. You figured out, through numerous experiences of attempting to rush things and experiencing subsequent failure, that delays are almost always divine protection, and prolonged waiting is simply deep-level preparation for a far greater, more complex assignment. Your calm persistence, your gentle, unhurried refusal to rush your own process, your life or your relationships, signifies a profound, radical trust in a mysterious yet perfectly orchestrated timetable that only you seem to possess direct access to. What the world interprets as slowness, heaven recognizes as obedience. What they see as inaction, God identifies as strategic positioning. The unanointed assume that forcing momentum creates success, but you learn through countless spiritual lessons that forcing anything prematurely is the fastest path to sabotage. Every time you attempted to accelerate something that wasn't ready, it crumbled. Every time you tried to push open a door not meant for that season, the collapse of that attempt became one of your greatest teachers. Over time, you became spiritually fluent in the silent language of timing. You learned to sense when a situation carried divine peace and when it carried human pressure. You learned to tell the difference between a blessing and a distraction simply by the pace at which it demanded your energy. You became anchored in a deep stillness that the world cannot imitate. The internal mechanism, the wisdom of divine timing, is a profound spiritual antidote to the modern psychological affliction of hustle culture and anxiety-driven ambition. When you live by human timing, every moment of waiting generates cortisol and triggers the fear of scarcity. The mind starts spiraling. If I don't act now, someone else will take what's mine. But when you align with divine timing, every moment of waiting generates patience, discernment, and preparedness. Waiting becomes a spiritual classroom, Silence becomes strategy. Stillness becomes strength. You realize that the quality of the foundation you build is infinitely more valuable than the speed at which the structure is erected. Therefore, you utilize perceived delays not as frustrating setbacks, but as essential time for inner calibration and character consolidation. While others view waiting as stagnation, you understand that waiting is construction. God building you into someone who can carry the weight of the very thing you prayed for. This is why people become confused by you. They see an opportunity flash by and expect you to chase it with frantic energy, yet you move with a serene, deliberate pace. They assume you missed your chance, only to watch later a vastly superior opportunity land directly into your lap, effortlessly, elegantly, and precisely aligned with who you have become. They cannot fathom that you have achieved spiritual synchronicity, where your lack of frantic action is the very magnet that pulls the perfect moment toward you. What they consider passivity is actually mastery. You understood that true power is not in pushing against the current, but in knowing precisely when the tide is meant to carry you. This calm, unmoving trust in a higher invisible schedule, this refusal to panic under the pressure of what if I miss out, is the highest form of spiritual intelligence. It is the ultimate act of faith, the quiet posture of someone who has learned that nothing meant for them can ever pass them by. And because of this, you move differently. You speak differently. You choose differently. Your entire life flows from the confidence of someone who knows they are guided, protected, and perfectly timed by the divine. Point 7. Transforming pain into pure presence, the alchemist's touch. Perhaps the most confusing, compelling, and utterly magnificent insight of the fully activated Chosen One is your developed, practiced ability to utilize past traumas, deep-seated sorrows, and periods of agonizing pain, not as permanent shackles or crippling weights, but as powerful, transcendent fuel for your current radical presence. The unanointed tend to store their pain, allowing it to define, restrict, and pollute their perception of the present moment. They remain trapped in the energy of what happened or the fear of what might happen, endlessly circling the same emotional labyrinth, believing that their suffering holds authority over their destiny. The Chosen One, however, through the profound, solitary work of the soul, learned to convert the heavy, dense, restrictive energy of past trauma into the weightless, potent, and clarifying energy of pure presence in what is. This is not a simple shift in mindset, but a complete alchemical transformation of consciousness. While others remain mentally paralyzed by memory, perpetually fighting a battle that concluded years ago, you stand here, right now, fully present, utilizing the immense depth of your journey to cultivate a powerful, radical empathy and a profound sense of gratitude for the now. Your very existence becomes a living testimony of what it means to refuse imprisonment by the past. Your observers are left utterly bewildered by the sheer, beautiful spiritual alchemy of your transformation. They do not understand how one who endured so much emerged, not diminished, but expanded, radiant even. The internal mechanism. This transformation is the ultimate spiritual and psychological accomplishment, the final stage of self-mastery. It involves recognizing that the pain itself, while agonizing, was the catalyst that stripped away the superficial layers of the ego, exposing your true, invincible spiritual core. Most people fight to protect the facade of who they think they must be. You, however, were broken open in a way that revealed who you actually are. You figured out that the deepest wounds are often the sources of the highest wisdom, that suffering is not a detour but a direct initiation into your divine identity. When you speak about suffering, it's not from a place of lingering victimhood, but from a position of authority and genuine compassion, a compassion earned in the trenches of your own soul. This conversion process means you no longer view your trauma as a flaw, but as a specialized curriculum vitae for serving others. Your history is not an indictment, it is a certification. You use the memory of the past not to cause anxiety, but to fuel empathy, allowing you to connect with the suffering of others on a level they instantly recognize as authentic. When people encounter your presence, they sense something rare, someone who has been hurt deeply yet carries no bitterness, someone who has seen darkness intimately yet radiates light. They see your scars and expect fragility, but they find instead a profound, unshakable strength, a calmness of spirit that defies their expectations. This is why the chosen one's aura feels different. Your peace is not naive. It is hard-won. It is the peace of one who has confronted the storm, walked through fire, and emerged with clarity rather than ashes. This complete, beautiful surrender and integration of the shadow, the ability to look at your darkest moments and declare them good because of the wisdom they imparted, is the final piece of the divine code you successfully cracked. It is the acknowledgement that nothing in your life was wasted. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every moment of despair contributed to shaping the depth, purity, and precision of your spirit. This magnificent, serene ability to convert the bitterness of loss into the sweetness of pure, untainted presence is why you inspire such deep, quiet awe in the world. You are living proof that pain, when transmuted through consciousness, becomes power, that sorrow, when surrendered to divine purpose, becomes wisdom, and that every wound, when integrated, becomes a doorway to a higher version of yourself. The world will continue to be awestruck. They will continue to wonder and whisper about the true secret you possess, the hidden mechanism that allows you to navigate the same storms with such superior tranquility. But the truth, the beautiful, quiet truth, is that your secret is not a hidden spell, nor a complex, inaccessible religious dogma. Your secret, your truth, is simply awareness. It is the daily, moment-to-moment, often subtle choice to listen to the gentle, persistent voice of the divine over the loud, relentless clamor of fear, worry, and egoic comparison. It is the realization, deep in the marrow of your being, that your entire path, every jagged turn, every desolate valley, every unexpected ascent, was designed not to break you and certainly not to punish you, but rather to isolate you and refine you so that you could finally hear the specific, nuanced instructions meant only for your unique mission. You were being prepared for the weight of the crown, and preparation is rarely comfortable. Rest in that quiet knowing. Remain unmoving and unbothered in your profound discernment. You have figured out the core, foundational mechanism of the spiritual life, and your resulting peace, your unearned calm, is the undeniable living evidence. Let the deep silence of your spiritual certainty be your loudest, most eloquent answer to the curious, bewildered observers. You owe them no explanations, only the example of your tranquil presence. Go forward in your day, anointed one, and let your tranquil, deeply rooted presence continue to be the soft, unwavering light that both baffles and gently guides those who are still seeking the way out of the maze. You have found the center. Now, simply dwell there. Amen.